Hello, this is Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 best-selling author, and host of the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio, welcoming you to UK Health Radio's Natural Healing Show. Now, you can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, our guest today is a recovery coach for drug and alcohol addiction. Kevin Parker is the author of his first book, Winning Against All Odds, and he is not only a recovery coach for drugs and alcohol addiction, but also a speaker and author. And you can find out more about Kevin Parker and his very important life-changing work at his website, truewarriorsuccess.com. Welcome, Kevin Parker.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be on your show.
Now, Kevin Parker, your book, Winning Against All Odds, which I read, was one of the best books that I have to say that I've read in a very long time. So congratulations. And for our audience, Winning Against All Odds is Kevin Parker's true story of his struggle with and recovery from addiction. So very heartfelt book, and you'll get a lot out of reading it. So Kevin Parker, you're a recovery coach for drugs and alcohol. How does trauma affect our lives?
Well, that's a great question because trauma is one of our biggest problems in our lives. And unfortunately, we try to find solutions to our traumas. And sometimes those solutions we come up with just create bigger problems. In my case, addiction.
Okay, and for our audience who hasn't yet read your book, Winning Against All Odds, what were you addicted to?
I was trying to fill a void in my heart that was unlimited. It was infinite. And I put in drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling. I mean, anything to the absolute limit was my drug of choice. I just was trying to numb feelings of not feeling enough, not feeling love, or feeling worthless. And no matter how many drugs, alcohol, sex, or any kind of stimulant I chose, it was never enough. And it really consumed my life.
And specifically, what drugs had you been addicted to? And the reason I'm asking is I want our audience to know that no matter what drug it is, you can get free of it.
So the drugs that I was really, really addicted to was cocaine and painkillers. They ran rampant through my life. I started doing cocaine when I was 14 years old. I accidentally stumbled across somebody's safe that had a kilo of cocaine in it. And I highly respected them. And I tried it for the first time. And from that point on, I was a slave to my addiction. At 18 years old, susceptible to addiction already, I got into an accident with a bus, a head-on collision. I injured my neck and my back. And I went to the doctor and they quickly prescribed me painkillers. Before I knew it, I was completely addicted. I couldn't wake up in the morning without popping a few pills.
And which painkillers were you addicted to?
Well, it started with 5 milligram Percocet, then it went to 15 and 30 milligrams. Then I was taking 80 Oxycontins. I was taking methadone. I was even doing a little heroin, sniffing it, taking pills, doing all those type of things. I never shot it intravenously, but if I would have, I probably would have died.
You know, one of my 10 books is called The Difference Between Pain and Suffering. And it's a handbook that anyone can use to get out of pain naturally without drugs. And the reason I wrote that book was before COVID, before the coronavirus pandemic, the leading cause of death for Americans under the age of 50 was actually drug overdose. So we're both doing what we can do to help people at this time. So Kevin Parker, you are a recovery coach. Why did drugs and alcohol ruin so many families and take so many lives?
Well, it's a progressive disease. See, you start with something innocent like smoking weed or drinking alcohol, and you start getting used to that. And eventually it doesn't have the same effect. and you get more used to it. And it is a gateway drug because you get exposed to it, and then you try to get a bigger, stronger, crazier high, and you start moving on to stronger and more powerful things. Even today, with the pharmacies giving away painkillers, Xanax, all of these different prescribed medications, younger kids are thinking it's okay to take these pills because it's very easy to just pop a pill in your mouth. You don't have to smoke it. You don't have to shoot it. And they don't understand how addictive it is physically, mentally, and emotionally. And a lot of these drugs, when they get their hands on you, I mean, they have you. There's nothing you can do to get out of it, because to get off of it, you got to go through withdrawals. Some drugs, you end up having seizures if you stop. You get flu-like symptoms. You get pains and sicknesses, and it's just unbearable. I mean, the people that I know that actually beat addiction and went through withdrawal are some of the strongest people I've ever met in my whole entire life. It's very, very difficult to stop.
Now, you mentioned marijuana as being a gateway drug. And as you know, there are laws being passed all over the world to legalize marijuana. And of course, alcohol is legal, and at one time it wasn't. What is your personal opinion about marijuana, about the safety of it, and whether you think it actually is a drug that if people start smoking weed, that they can get into other things that are harder?
I love that you asked that question, because alcohol and weed can be taxed, so the government makes a lot of money on it. I'm not against marijuana. See, if you're a grown adult and you're responsible and you have your things together and you want to smoke on the weekend in moderation, it's okay. And it also has a lot of medicinal practices for it. It relieves pain and stress and helps people sleep. And it has a lot of medicinal purposes to it. But the problem is we're making it okay, and young kids are getting their hands on it. And that's the problem, because the worst part of smoking marijuana is it kills your ambitions and motivations to excel, grow, and expand. You get you get comfortable with just skating by, just doing enough just to get by. It makes you lazy, it makes you tired, it makes you forgetful, and you don't shoot for your dreams. So if you get exposed to marijuana very early, you might have been a lawyer, but you were okay with getting 70 grades and not doing your homework and not doing the extra things that would have got you to where you're supposed to be. So it really kills people's potential, and that's what I'm really against. But if somebody has issues, medical issues, and want to smoke, and they're responsible adults, and they have their life together, and they want to do it responsibly, that it's not hurting anybody, I don't have any problem with it. But I think it's has a really, really bad effect on our young kids and the people that don't know where their life is going.
Now, here at the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio, we've interviewed CEOs of a CBD oil company, for example, and we talked about the medicinal qualities of CBD oil and how to use that. But that CBD oil is very different, in my professional opinion, than smoking marijuana. And my first 10 years out of 28 years in natural healing was all about learning about how to heal the brain. And your brain is supposed to be soft like jello, and marijuana hardens your brain. And if you look at the brain waves of somebody smoking weed, it scrambles your brain waves. So, usually your brain waves are in this nice sine pattern, and literally marijuana scrambles your brain. So I'm not a fan of smoking marijuana on a regular basis because of what it does to your brain. And I've also worked with clients over the years who, believe it or not, have developed things like arthritis from chronic, daily marijuana use. So that's my position about it. So to me, it's not a moral issue so much as it is a health issue. But of course, chronic alcohol use can also destroy all kinds of things, right?
So everybody has some type of vice. Like I said, alcohol is very, very deadly. In fact, it's one of the most deadliest drugs out there. It destroys lives through drunk driving, through bad decisions, through liver and kidneys, and all kinds of different problems medically, and also mentally, emotionally, and socially. It destroys everything. Everybody has a vice. Some people, we're all addicts. We're all addicts of pleasure. Just because your favorite flavor of pleasure is different than mine doesn't make the component any different. I'm not an advocate of smoking every day. I'm not an advocate of drinking every day. I do believe in harm reduction model as well, because some people want to quit doing heroin, but won't give up that glass of wine on the weekends. And if they can do it responsible, or that joint that they smoke on a Saturday night, if they can do it responsible in moderation, where it's not hurting their health, it's not hurting other people, then it's okay if it's not destroying their lives. But like you said, there is adverse effects to everything that we do. So anything that you do, you have to do in moderation.
Yes. And, in my 28 years of as a medical intuitive healer, I've helped people get off marijuana, OxyContin, all kinds of things, smoking marijuana every day for 16 years. And it's my experience that when you get off of something, you have to give that person a substitute that will work. And like you said, there's a harm reduction way. So if you're shooting heroin, then you got to step down to something that's legal that, hopefully won't kill you instantly.
Yeah.
So it's really important that we find those substitutes. Exercise, becoming an exercise addict is a great substitute for addiction. But going back to my question, Kevin Parker, why did drugs and alcohol ruin so many families? Because when a person becomes an addict, it's not just their health that gets affected, it's the whole family.
See, addiction really, really impacts the family, because on an emotional level, they're trying to fix the addict when the addict is the only person can make that decision. So a lot of the time they'll be there, they'll give the addict a comfortable environment to use, depleting and destroying all of their resources, ruining their own mental and emotional health, and sacrificing so much in their lives just to try to help the addict, when they don't realize in reality they're making it worse, because by enabling the addict, you're actually giving them the ability to use more comfortably. But behind every addict, there's an even sicker person that's enabling. So people love their family members and their friends so much that they want to help, but they don't know how to do it in a professional manner. That's why I highly recommend getting a professional involved that can help guide you and assist you in these things, because I've seen families get destroyed, ripped apart, people commit suicide, lose their kids, and there's legal issues to it too. Addicts get in a lot of trouble. They steal, they hurt people, and they do all kinds of illegal activities that create a lot of problems around them. And if you're part of a family, you get caught by the ripple effect of that. It hurts so many people. That's why addiction is such a deadly pandemic.
Now, one of the things that I really loved about your book, Winning Against All Odds, is that you very honestly, from your heart, told the story about your journey through addiction. And I can't even remember how many times in reading this story you related how other family members tried to help you to stop. And it seemed like almost everybody in your family did something to try and help you get clean. Why is it so difficult for other family members who are not professionals to get through to an addict to make a difference?
See, the problem is they're too close to the problem. I'm a coach. I'm an excellent coach. I can help people get over their recovery, their addictions, but I can't help my cousin or my brother or somebody that's because they see me as their brother or their cousin. I'm not as influential as an authority figure in that field. I also don't know how to go about doing it. And there's too many emotions involved. So the addict knows how to manipulate you when you're trying to intercede. They know your trigger points. They know how to handle you in a way that they can get their way. And that's the ultimate goal of an addict, is to manipulate the situation where they have control. And that's ultimately what they do in every single situation. And they know you way too well to allow you to let them help you.
Right. So if there's a family member who's listening to this program and they recognize that one of their loved ones has a problem with drugs or alcohol, what's the first step that you can recommend for a family member to take?
Well, to see what kind of resources are in your area, I highly recommend hiring a family coach or a recovery coach to understand, but educate yourself. Educate yourself about the addiction, about the drug that they're using. There's Al-Anon groups, which is support for family members to really understand addiction, and seeing what kind of resources there are. Um, if it's a problem, I would highly suggest getting an interventionist involved, because getting them away from their environment is the pivotal point to get them sober. Now, sending somebody to rehab is not the cure-all. In fact, it's a 91% chance that there's a relapse rate after they come back home if there's not the proper aftercare and if the family is not educated and guided and assisted in the proper way to handle it when they come back. So you need extra help. You need to get information, you need to get support, and you need to get a professional on it immediately before it really festers into something worse.
Now, one of the pivotal stories in your book, Winning Against All Odds, was you related the story about how your family tried to stage an intervention to get you to get clean. But it was just family members and they all loved you. They were very concerned for you, and it ended up backfiring. Why is it so important, in your opinion, to have a professional present when a family tries to stage an intervention?
Well, first off, it's not like what you see in the movies. You can't watch it on celebrity interventions and then just do an intervention by modeling that. It's not like that. There's a lot of moving parts in it, and you have to be able to roll with the punches and really understand and control the environment, up into the way that you situate the people sitting in the room is very, very important. Also, like I said, they know how to manipulate their family members. They don't see them as a professional that can help them in this problem. They don't think that their family members can relate to their pain and what they're going through. So by getting an interventionist that understands the addiction and understands what they're going through, they can relate, they can empathize, they can give them a handout and a solution that's best for them. Also, interventionists are trained, if they're trained properly, to match a facility for the client. Finding a facility that's like almost a vacation, something that they love. If they love horses, maybe there's horseback riding at the place, to sell them on not getting arrested basically and sent to a detention center, but having a break from the turmoil lifestyle that they're living right now. You have to sell them on that. A regular family member is going to be concerned to be like, we need to get you out of here. We're going to send you away. You have to leave. If you don't leave, you got to get out. And anytime you are offensive or you act like that, people get defensive. They put their guards up. As well as the addict knows their family members. They know how to manipulate them. It comes down to manipulation and control again. But really, you need to be, it's like a dance. You have to orchestrate it properly, because if you push too hard, they start pushing back. And you really need to let them understand. If you start accusing them of things, which most families do, they start making up excuses how that's not true or that's not the real situation. And you need to be able to state things that they can't argue against. That'll be powerful for the movement, and understand, let the client or the addict understand how it's making the rest of the family feel, not what they did, because they can always say, I didn't do that. You're lying. You don't want them to be able to defend your plan of attack.
Now, I've read your wonderful book, Winning Against All Odds, but our audience probably hasn't read it yet. Can you share for our audience what happened in your case when your family tried to stage an intervention without a professional? Because it ended up totally backfiring you and making you really sick. So can you share that story?
Well, they woke me up in the morning, very early in the morning. I was sleeping in the bed with my girlfriend, and they kind of bombarded me, shook me, scared me. I didn't know what was going on. Kind of started yelling at me and telling me how I'm a junkie and how I need to go away for a bunch of years, or else they're going to kick me out. And immediately I got defensive. I was like, first of all, I'm not a junkie. Second of all, I'm not going away for 2 years. I'm not leaving my girlfriend at home while I'm going away. Absolutely not. And they were accusing me, and they were offending me and accusing me of all these different things. And I was denying every single thing. And I was mad because they were making me feel like I was being attacked. So I started attacking back. Eventually I told them, you know what, I'm leaving. I packed my stuff up. I put my safe on my shoulder and I stormed out the house. I went to my best friend's house, and that night I overdosed. They found me face first in my vomit, completely unresponsive. And I spent the next 3 weeks in a coma fighting for my life. I woke up to multi-organ failure, 108 fever. In fact, I died 3 times in the hospital, and they had a priest come in and read me my last rites. For weeks and weeks on end, I had no answers. Finally, the doctor came and said, I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is, I think you're going to make it. But the bad news is, we're going to have to take your leg. So now I have a prosthetic leg that I have to put on every single morning to remind me of all the mistakes that I made in my life. And that wasn't just the extent of the issues that I had. I had irreparable nerve damage throughout my body. I had drop wrist and complete atrophy throughout my body. I had sepsis of the blood. My whole body went into absolute shock. I lost about half of my body weight, and it was pretty intense.
I'm so sorry that you went through that, but we're glad that you're still here to tell the story and explain why getting a professional in an intervention can be the difference between life and death.
Yes.
Now, Kevin Parker, recovery coach, how does physical, mental, and emotional pain correlate with one another?
Well, they flow into one another. Absolutely 100%. There's a 100% correlation with all of them, because your physical state affects your mental state and your emotional state. So like if you're sitting and you're down and droopy and everything, you're going to feel down and you're going to feel that emotion. But if I got up and stood up with intensity, it brings up your emotions. It brings up your mental. If you're in pain physically, you're going to feel bad. You're going to be like, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this pain. I don't know what I'm going to do. Then you start getting depressed and you feel hopeless, and whatever the case may be, or vice versa. Emotionally, say if your girlfriend breaks up with you or boyfriend breaks up with you, now you're sad. Mentally, you don't know what you're going to do, and physically, you don't want to get out of bed. If you're not taking care of yourself physically with food and the right nutrients and exercise and getting the endorphins and sunlight that you need, you're not going to feel good emotionally. And if you're not feeling good physically and emotionally, you're going to feel bad mentally. If you don't have mental clarity, you're not going to feel good emotionally. And those things are going to pour into one another and vice versa, each way you do it. So really taking care of your physical, mental, and emotional well-being is a very, very important part to staying clean and fighting addiction.
Wonderful insights. And, when I wrote my book, The Difference Between Pain and Suffering, there was a story behind that, because I'm a medical intuitive healer. I live my life prayerfully. And one day I received guidance that I needed to write a little article called What's the Difference Between Pain and Suffering? And I have a blog at catherinecarrigan.com. And what I noticed was that someone literally read that article literally every single day of my life. What is the difference between pain and suffering? And lots of people were searching to try and understand. So I ended up writing the book, The Difference Between Pain and Suffering, which kind of outlines my approach, physical, energetic, emotional, mental, and spiritual, about how you can get out of pain naturally without drugs. But in a nutshell, and this is my experience, not that I know anything based on 28 years in experience in natural healing, pain is the physical experience. It's the headache, it's the stomach ache, it's the pulled muscle or the broken leg. Suffering is the emotional experience. And as they say, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And so as we do our deep inner work, as we work on the mental, emotional, spiritual level, you clear the suffering. And my experience also as a medical intuitive healer is that if you do not deal with and root out the mental, emotional, spiritual causes of dis-ease, the pain just moves around. And I always joke, and this is going to totally date me, and I am 62, but if you ever watched the old movie, Young Frankenstein, there was a character who had a hump on his upper back. And every time you saw him, the hump moved around. And that's exactly how pain is. If you do not root out, if you don't deal with and face the mental, emotional, spiritual underpinnings and the suffering, if you don't face it, deal with it, and release it, then it manifests as physical pain in your body. And even if you heal physical pain, if you're not getting to those root mental, emotional, spiritual causes, it literally just morphs into disease or physical pain in another area. Now, Kevin Parker, how did drugs affect your life and all of the people around you?
Drugs was my answer to every problem in my young life. Anything that I went through, I thought drugs was the solution, and it just made my problems even worse. Growing up as a kid, I was very smart and I was very athletic. I was an all-star baseball player, football player. I was in the honors class, but my drug use slowly dwindled my grades down to me passing high school by the skin of my teeth. But I mean, not being as good as an athlete as I should have been. So I could have went to college. I could have got scholarships. I mean, I had unlimited potential, but I dwarfed myself because I cut every corner I could find. Little did I know I was cutting myself short. It destroyed every single relationship I ever had, intimate relationships. All the friends that I had growing up stopped hanging out with me because they couldn't watch me destroy my life. It ended me up getting into a car accident with a bus, destroying my neck and my back. The physical parts of my body have been deteriorated. I have brain damage in my head that helps, this messes with my word recall and short-term memory. I have pain throughout my whole body that I suffer from each and every single day. I lost a lot of opportunities in my life. I got into a lot of trouble. I got arrested quite a few times when I was younger. It cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it cost me my leg. It cost me vision in my eye. It cost me everything. But I'm just so grateful that I had a second chance at life, and then my eyes were opened, because I would have hated to have ended my life in that hospital and failed so much and had such great potential, but didn't live it out.
Now, Kevin Parker, recovery coach and author of Winning Against All Odds, you mentioned earlier in the program that you were very young when you started the addiction. And so many people, they think, well, they're just a teenager. How, for our audience, can you repeat, how old were you when you started your addiction? And how old were you when you got clean? Because my observation is so many people think, well, they're just a teenager, it's just a phase. But that phase during those teen years while your brain is developing can cost you your life
Hmm. Or your leg.
or your leg.
So I started using drugs at 10 years old.
Oh.
My intense, heavy drug use didn't start till I was about 15 years old, about end of freshman year of high school. And it didn't stop until I died in the hospital at 25. So I had 15 years of use, 10 years of heavy use, and I missed all the greatest years of my life.
Well, and you're still alive sharing helpful information. You're still uplifting the planet. So thank you. We're glad that you made it. Now, Kevin Parker, what advice would you give to anyone who just lost a limb or experienced a tragic accident?
It's not the end of the world. I remember when I first lost my leg and I was sitting in that hospital trying to figure out what I was going to do. I thought, I was a union construction worker before that. I thought, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Who's going to want to hang out? What am I going to do for fun? What woman is going to love a man with one leg? And let me tell you, it made me bigger, better, and stronger than I ever been before. I may have lost my leg and I'm half the person that I was physically, but I am 100 times the man that I ever was. after I lost my leg. It made me learn how to grow from bad experiences, and it learned how to appreciate the good things in life. It really just gave me a better appreciation for life. And it's just take it slow, because when you first get your leg on, you're going to be like, this is impossible. You're not going to be able to put the prosthetic on. You're going to think this is dumb. I don't want to do this. It's going to be painful. But your body has homeostatic functions in it, and it can get used to anything. Now my leg that I have right now, the one that I have that's full, is the strongest leg on the planet. It's like a pogo stick. I can bounce around like Tigger from Disney for hours. It's just so strong. Your body learns how to make up for the things that you're lacking, and you adapt so well. When I first did it, I couldn't take one step. Now I can run, I climb mountains, I jump out of planes, I play sports. There is no limitations to anything that I do. And I thought it would never, ever happen like this. They told me it was going to take 2 years to learn how to walk. I was running in 2 months. So anything is possible. The only limitations you have is your mindset and your faith. And don't ever let anybody tell you what you can or cannot do.
Such an inspiring message. Now, Kevin Parker, here we are at the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. And what we do is talk about what we can do to be healthier naturally. Now, you've recovered and you're still recovering. What are some of the best natural holistic therapies, supplements, or practices that you've implemented in your life that have helped you recover that might also help other people?
Oh, I mean, that's great. It's really how you treat your body. It's big is nutrition and supplementation. I take turmeric. I take a multivitamin. I drink a lot of water. In fact, I drink alkalized ionized water. I try to get as many antioxidants in my body and anti-inflammatories as possible. I try to keep my body alkaline to keep the acidity out, because that creates inflammation. Anything to keep inflammation from my body. I eat a lot of berries. I do a lot of stretching. Stretching is very, very important. I take cold showers, not the whole time. I take a little bit of hot, a little bit of cold, but cold showers have been a big thing. And exercise. Exercise is huge. Strengthening the muscles that I have and making sure that I can carry my body weight and taking care of myself. I make sure I stretch. I make sure I work out. I make sure I eat healthy. Obviously, I have some cheat meals and stuff like that. You can still live your life, but for the majority, you want to eat good foods. Uh, I meditate. I pray a lot. I try to keep manifestation in my life and keeping a positive outlook, because your emotional mental state really affects how your body feels. So I try to keep my mental state good. I try to keep emotionally happy and in a state of gratitude. I put really good food in my body. I find the supplements and the amino acids that are going to help my body. And I try to keep a good spiritual life with meditation and prayer. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much what I do to keep myself in good places right now. And I try not to take medications, because there's always side effects to everything that you take. So I try not to take aspirin or Tylenol. I definitely don't take painkillers. And I try to find the natural holistic route to go. It's always the best way to go.
For sure, because I always say that sometimes nutrition's the slow way, but sometimes it's the only way. And if you've had a history of being addicted to painkillers and they cause all these horrible reactions in your body, it's really important that you learn this helpful information. Now, Kevin Parker, you're a recovery coach. In your professional opinion, what is the hardest part for people to stay clean and sober?
Mm. It's creating a life that they love to live. See, the fact of the matter is, happy people don't do drugs. If you're truly content with your life, if you have fulfillment and purpose and joy and love in your life, and you're truly happy, there's no room for drugs. There's no need for them. And surrounding yourself with the right people that are going to inspire you and support you and learning how to get rid of the toxic relationships, the toxic environments, the toxic interests and things that you used to do. You know, you don't want to go to a bar if you're trying to stop drinking alcohol. You don't want to be hanging out with heroin addicts if you're not doing heroin. And just finding a support system that's going to pick you up when you're feeling down and inspire you when you're on fire and keep you moving to your purpose and your passion, because it truly is a mindset, and you have to create a life around you that is conducive for sobriety. You can't be like, all right, I'm going to quit drugs and then go to drug parties or hang out with or do things that used to trigger you to do drugs, because that's just a stupid thing to test yourself. A lot of my clients would be like, they like try to quit drinking and they're like, you know, I'm 3 months clean and, you know, I'm just going to go to the bar to test myself to see if I can not drink. I mean, what's the best thing that can happen? You're not going to drink. Chances are it's going to be somewhere in between you getting plastered or having a few drinks or being mad that you're there because everybody else is drunk. Why put yourself in that situation? Find friends and support systems that are going to encourage you to stay sober, to create that life that you love to live.
So if someone's listening to this program and they're working hard to stay clean and sober, how important do you think it is, Kevin Parker, for a person to part ways with their old friends who are still addicted?
It's hard because chances are a lot of the people that you were using with, you know, for years. And you remember the good times, people that you love and care about. You want to see the best in them. You don't want to let go of the memories. You don't want to let go of the feelings and the care. But the fact of the matter is you can love somebody from far away. You don't have to be the thick of things. If you have a toxic person, excuse me, if you have a toxic person in your life that can't stop doing drugs, call them every once in a while, but don't hang out with them. Learn to put a separation and set boundaries and let them know, listen, I love you. It's not that I don't care about you. It's not that I don't want to see you do well, but you're not doing things that are going to help me stay sober. And I love you. I care about you. But if I hang out with you, you're going to destroy my life. And if you care about me, you would either get clean or respect my boundaries. And at that point, if they don't respect your boundaries, then they don't really care about you. They just want to pull you back into their stuff. But if they truly love you, they'll understand that statement. And that's a friend that you can still talk to and keep in contact with. You just stay away from them until they figure out what they need to do. And if you start withdrawing things from people in your life that you love, that use, eventually they're going to hit a breaking point where like, wow, all these things that I truly value and care about are being taken away because of drugs. Then they have to make a decision. Do I want my drugs or do I want the people that I love and care about? And they have to make that decision. And that's the only way you're going to get somebody that you care about to quit doing drugs. You're not going to be able to force them. They have to associate more pain with using drugs than the pleasure of using them. And that's just the way that it works. And if they can't respect those boundaries, then they're not a friend at all.
Now, if someone's listening to this program and they're working hard to stay clean and sober, Kevin Parker, how would you recommend a person identify what's the definition of a toxic person? Is it just someone who does drugs and alcohol, or how can they make that differentiation?
Well, anybody that is bringing hardship to your life, anybody that is making your life more difficult and destroying your ultimate mission of staying sober. If we're speaking about sobriety, if anybody triggers you to use, it may be a toxic mother or father. It may be an abusive family member. It may be somebody that when you see them, you want to pick up a drink or you want to go do heroin. And they might not even mean it. And that's, unfortunately, it doesn't matter. If they cause you to think about using drugs, or they influence you, or try to get you to, or remind you to do drugs, then they're toxic for your sobriety. And you need to put some kind of boundary or completely eliminate them from your life if you can.
Now, Kevin Parker, you are now clean, and you mentioned that your struggle with addiction began when you were 10. You started doing drugs when you were 10, started doing harder drugs when you were 15, and then it took you all the way to 25 when you almost died. How many years have you been clean and sober now?
Um, 11/22/11, I stopped doing drugs. So it's almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years in February.
Congratulations. In your opinion, what is the best way to get clean and sober?
Hmm. See, this is there's no cookie cutter answer for this because and if you're in certain communities, they'll disagree. They'll say AA is the most important, NA, smart recovery, celebrate hope, Christian recovery. They all have their own way. But the fact of the matter is there's 100 ways to get sober. You need to figure out what works best for you. Forget about everybody else. What model works best for you? See, there's all kinds of different resources out there. You can go to detox and rehab, and there's intensive outpatient programs. It depends on how much accountability you need and how much customization you need. See, me as a recovery coach, I work one-on-one with the client, and it's a multifaceted, customizable approach to bring the addict from exactly where they are to exactly where they want to go. I believe in recovery coaching. That's why I got into it, because it's customizable to the person. We're not following a program. We're figuring out what you need in your life to create this life of sobriety. But there's many ways. So I don't knock any way. There's harm reduction for people that want to quit heroin but won't stop having a glass of wine at a wedding. And if that's your road to recovery, then that's okay. Whatever's going to help you have a successful life. That's not harmful for you and other people around you. So I work with all kinds of different models. I work with AA, I work with Celebrate Hope, I work with Smart Recovery, and I learned all those modalities and I put it together and give somebody a customizable program. But you also need to get your family involved. They need to understand. They need to understand how to deal with you. And it's however you go, it's a multifaceted approach. It's a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual approach to creating this life. And you have to commit to it. Whatever thing you decide and whatever works for you, you have to work it.
Now, Kevin Parker, in my work as a medical intuitive healer, one of the most important healings that I ever do with a person is to do a healing with them to be willing to get well. Because if you're willing to get well, you will do whatever it takes. However, what I find, and I talk about this in several of my books, there's 25 different ways that people can be addicted to pain and suffering. And so we don't even have time to go over all of those. So at the end of the day, all of this comes down to personal motivation. What is your experience as a recovery coach? What's the most important thing that a person needs to get motivated to be willing to get clean and sober?
They have to be so sick and tired of being sick and tired. 90% of the time, it takes somebody to hit rock bottom. Now, everybody has a different rock bottom. Some people, it might be getting kicked out of their house, of their family members. Some people, it might be eating out of a garbage can. I mean, I've heard horrible stories of where people's rock bottom is, but you have to associate more pain with using drugs than the pain it is going to take to get clean, because it is a battle. It is a process and it is a struggle, but I am telling you, it is 1,000% worth it. But some people need the catalyst to get over that hump of withdrawal and overcoming and making a new lifestyle and creating a new life, because most people are comfortable in their comfort zone. They're in their little comfort bubble and they only live in that comfort bubble. And it's really, really uncomfortable for people to step out of their comfort zone. And it's uncomfortable, but that's where all growth happens. If you stay where you're comfortable, you're never going to grow, and eventually you're going to die. And that's really what it comes down to, associating more pain with your use than the pain it's going to take to step out of your comfort zone and try something different and go through those struggles.
And if someone's listening to this broadcast and they're a young person, like you mentioned, because you got into hard drugs as a teenager, how can we motivate the teenagers who don't have the life experience that you and I have had?
You're asking me to how to motivate them to not do drugs, or
Yes,
what's the
and
question?
how to get clean.
Hmm.
Hard question.
Well, it's a two-part question. I just want to be clear on what the question was. So, if they're not doing drugs and they're thinking about doing drugs, it always comes down to what problem are they trying to solve with that drug use? Because ultimately, it comes down to an underlying root problem that they're trying to address with a bad solution. Drugs is the worst solution to fix any problem. Unfortunately, whether it's peer pressure or not feeling like they're loved, or they don't feel enough, or they don't feel comfortable in their own skin, they use this to mask their problems. But you need to address that problem and figure out a more healthy way to deal with that. Whatever that might be, I can't answer that question fully until I had the specific situation with that person. But you have to ask yourself, why do I want to do this drug? What is it solving in my life? And then figure out a better way to solve that problem. And then the second part of that question, if you're doing drugs and you're struggling with drugs, understand that there is so much support and resources out there. Even if you're afraid to tell your parents, listen, I'm struggling with drugs, there are programs that are free. There are support groups. There are things out there that can help you. But the first thing that you got to do is shed light on it. You have to tell somebody, because problems fester in the darkness, but they can't grow in the light.
This is just wonderful, wonderful information. You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. We've been talking today to recovery coach Kevin Parker. You can find out more about him and his wonderful work at truewarriorsuccess.com, and also read his fabulous book, Winning Against All Odds. And remember, even if you are addicted to very hard drugs, it is possible to get clean, and you can do that naturally. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.